As a member of the Rust Belt elite, I would like to watch this particular video from one Jordan Chariton on Status Quo News.
It's a myth that West Virginia is like this conservative state and Joe Manchin has to be this way to get reelected. Well, Bernie Sanders won every single county in West Virginia when he in the primary in 2016. Every single county. West Virginia.
Okay, so let's break that down. We're going to take this piece by piece by piece by piece because he's going to lay out a lot of nonsense, and we just need to every single nonsense he states, we're going to unnonsensify each of those statements. Okay, 1. When we're talking about the Senate, we're not talking about the primary. We're talking about the general election. Hear me out. A general election is different than a primary, okay? So when we talk about the primary, right, it's very possible that you could see someone like Donald Trump win the Republican primary in a place like Washington, D.C. I'm curious, actually, who did win the primary? Republican primary of 2016, D.C. District of Columbia, primary results, 2016. Marco Rubio won. Okay, John Kasich, right? Okay, so here's a question. Do you think that Marco Rubio could win D.C.? No, of course he couldn't win D.C. He could win a primary of the Republicans. Keep in mind, let's just read this here. 1,000 people voted in the primary of the Republican Party in D.C. 75,000 for Hillary Clinton, 20,000 for Bernie Sanders in the same place. So, gee, I wonder why that is. Maybe that's because the number of people who voted in total I'm sorry, you're not being able to see all of this. This is what we were just looking at. I apologize. This right here, Marco Rubio won 1,000 votes right there. Hillary Clinton won 75,000, right? But that was enough for Marco Rubio to win in 2016. And this was enough for Clinton to win in 2016 because the number of aggregate voters in Washington, D.C. Vote 2016. Election results 2016. Let's look at this. 90% of the people voted for Hillary Clinton and only 4% voted for Donald J. Trump. Okay, so that is why what he just said is absurd. That's why we don't care, even remotely, who is winning in a primary. What we care about is who is winning in the general election. That's what matters. Okay, we will continue.
Before the year 2009, 2010 had been a Democratic state for a century. It just kind of shifted to the right over the last 10 years. And if you go to West Virginia and you talk to people, they will tell you it shifted to the right because the Democratic Party wasn't offering anything. The Democratic Party.
Okay, so that part's true. He's right. The Democratic Party has, unironically, done terribly in the totality of the Rust Belt. We have screwed ourselves in Pennsylvania. We have screwed ourselves in Michigan. We have screwed ourselves in West Virginia. We have screwed ourselves across the totality of the places across this country that historically had a bunch of union workers. And we no longer have that kind of basis because we've screwed ourselves. So the question is, how do we unscrew ourselves? Right? Valid. That's a legitimate question. I'll get to it. But I first just want to have the basic framework, recognize the statistical reality, recognize that what he is saying, what he's positing is wrong. Let's look at this again. Here is what actually happened between Joe Biden. This is in 2020, right? Between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Okay, unlike the Republicans, right? We actually recognize and admit, okay, what actually happens in these votes. Ooh, last updated on January 6th of 2021. Ooh. Anyway, so the point though is that this right here, right, is the actual number. Literally, more than 2/3. Let's have a zoom in. More than 2/3 of the voters in the state of West Virginia voted for Donald Trump. Not 2/3 of the people who voted either of the two primary dominant parties. No. Just more than 2/3. Almost 70%, 68.6% of the vote. Let's make that big. Look how big that is. It's so big. What a big number. What a big number that is. It's a huge number, okay? And this is something, okay, that I think is really rather crucial to recognize. Now, let's compare that to the Senate, okay? Let's compare that. Oh, here's the other Senate race. Isn't that so interesting? Paula Jean Swearengin, right? Who is Paula Jean Swearengin? Oh, that's right. That's right. She's that woman who left the Democratic Party because she's that woman who is insanely far left, but is not just insanely far left, but is also just insane, is exactly the kind of person that someone like the status quo people, right, are in support of, right? She joined this movement for a people's party, right? And she's constantly talking about how awful the Democratic Party is, constantly talking about blah, 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 all of this nonsense baloney, complete baloney, right? And she, fascinating, didn't win. Isn't that so fascinating? She, in fact, literally got less than 30% of the vote. Isn't that so fascinating that she managed to get less than 30% of the vote? Wow, that's so interesting. I wonder how that compares to the sitting senator of West Virginia, Joe Manchin. Isn't that an interesting little piece of information we go through? There's all of this information explaining that is easily available, right? Explaining how obvious it is that one of these people is succeeding in West Virginia and one of these people is not succeeding in West Virginia. We continue.
Wasn't actually proposing or executing any policies for the people. For the people. So I want to play this clip from this, poor woman in West Virginia. She's part of the Poor People's Campaign. I want you to hear from her so you have a picture of who is the type of people that would be showing up in West Virginia if the progressives got outside of D.C. and actually went on offense and started shaming people like Joe Manchin right on his turf.
750 people a day was dying of poverty before COVID even hit. So, and it's worse now. Poverty was before COVID, and now it's even worse because some of the jobs didn't come back. Some of it, they're cutting their unemployment. Some of them don't have no jobs to go to, or if they do, it's a restaurant job, a minimum wage job, But
I thought the economy's roaring back. CNN told me.
You tell me when it ever changed. I never could tell a change from before or after because the minimum wage workers was carrying it anyway. The rich ain't doing nothing investing in it and then doing nothing to take care of it. We're the ones who's carrying this country. But we don't have the money to invest in it. We're carrying it, keeping it going. But we need corporations. They have got all the money. There's none going into the economy. We don't have it. If we had it, we would circulate it. We'd be buying homes, cars. Poor people can't afford cars. We're trying to fix up 20-year-old cars to drive. That's how bad. That's the real world. That's the real economy. And like I said, I don't know if Manchin is delusional or if he thinks we're that stupid. And that's what I want to ask him if he ever meets with me. And I want to ask him, what is worth fighting for to you? Because I ain't never seen you stand up for principles, my democracy. You've stomped my Constitution. So what are you really about? And
Here's the problem. I don't want to make a video like this because I want to pretend that a woman like this is actually representative of the average person in West Virginia. I want to pretend that someone like Paula Jean Swearengin, who is much closer to where I actually land in terms of my political ideology on a personal level, is someone who can win West Virginia. But she can't. She got less than 30% of the vote. So when we talk about Kyrsten Sinema, when we talk about the ability to win in Arizona, right? That is very different than who can win in the context of a place like West Virginia, right? Let's look right now, really quickly, at Arizona election results of 2020, right? Because these things are publicly available. We know what they are. Here's the Arizona election results and the map of 2020. We can see it. It's public. These things are not, secret, hidden away nonsense. They're obviously available, okay? Arizona is a swing state. Arizona, Biden won by 0.4% of the vote. It was really close, okay? We won, barely, but we won. Let's look at the Senate, right? In the Senate, we managed to win by about 2 points, right? It is close. It's not a long shot. This is not New York. This is not California, right? But we won in the case of Arizona, and that's great. And by the way, Kelly is not Sinema. Kelly is an actual progressive. Not, I'm not saying this is Sanders or anything, but Kelly is an actual progressive, right? And Kelly's able to win. And Sinema is able to win, but Sinema is going down in the polls currently by constantly fighting against the Biden administration's agenda, against the Build Back Better sort of agenda, against the sort of infrastructure goal sets that people have for the country within the Democratic Party, right? That is not helping Sinema. So when we attack Sinema for not being a progressive, this is perfectly valid because Sinema is in a state that believes in progressive values. And when we're talking about West Virginia, I'm sorry. I wish they believed different things than they do, but they don't believe in the values that I hold. And there is an open question. There's a very important question of why have we lost the people of West Virginia? Why have we lost so many people in Pennsylvania? Why have we lost so many people in Michigan? Why have we lost so many people in Ohio? This is a very legitimate question, and it's a question that we need to grapple with as a party. It's a thing that we have to grapple with as a country, and it's worth thinking about. But we can't lie to ourselves. And what concerns me about people like this, what concerns me about reporting like this, what concerns me about messaging like this, is that people like Jordon Chariton don't actually care about the consequences of their media. They don't actually care about the consequences of just saying, Joe Manchin is bad because I don't agree with Joe Manchin. And no, I'm sorry, okay? When you're looking at a state that looks like this, okay? When you're looking at a state where in the other Senate seat, we lost literally by 40 points, literally by 40 percentage points. When we're talking about a presidential election where we lost literally, okay, while we got less than 30%. Okay, we didn't get 30% in the presidential election. We didn't get 30% in the Senate election. Okay, when we're talking about a place like this where every single one of these places, okay, all of them are red. It is a sea of red. Literally, every single county in the entire state is red. Not one blue county in the state. That is insane. We didn't win a single county, okay? Not just we didn't win the state, we didn't win a single county. And they weren't particularly close, okay? If we break it down, county by county, 70% to Trump, 76% to Trump, 64% to Trump, 75% to Trump, 72%, 58%. This is the closest one we got. In Cabell County, we got 41% of the vote, and that is the highest vote count that we got in any county in the entire state. Okay? And you want to pretend that this is a place where people are on board with the Clinton agenda, with the Biden agenda, with the Sanders agenda. You are wrong. Okay? You are just wrong. I wish you were right, but you're not. We can't just live in cuckoo land and just pretend that the world looks like what we want the world to look like. The way that we change the way that the world looks like is by first being honest about what the world looks like currently. And we have to be honest that it is different to be Kyrsten Sinema in Arizona, where we have a progressive faction within the people of the state. It is different to be, some sort of Chuck Schumer who's sitting around in New York and is not as progressive as he should be. If you want to attack Chuck Schumer, have at it, Hoss, right? If you want to attack Kyrsten Sinema, have at it, Hoss. But you know what? Okay, we need people like Joe Manchin. We desperately need people like Joe Manchin because we shouldn't have that Senate seat. And the fact that we do is a miracle, okay? It's a miracle because Joe Manchin is better than anyone else in the entire country able to talk to people that the Democratic Party is decidedly incapable of talking to, okay? He is not on board with everything that the progressives want him to be on, everything that I want him to be on. That's valid. That's true, okay? But he's also on board with a heck of a lot more than any Republican would be. Anyone who is going to replace him would be worse. By definition, that is not true of Kyrsten Sinema. And it concerns me that people don't recognize that. So how do we fix it? Right? How do we change the problem of West Virginia? We have to start talking about things like healthcare. We have to start talking about things in the way that the people of West Virginia are able to hear it, want to hear it. Okay? And when you listen to people like Joe Manchin, the people who are successful in places like that, not listen to people like Paula Jean Swearengin because she failed, not listening to people like Jordon Chariton of Status Quo because he failed. Okay? We need to listen to the people who are winning in these states because in order to make change, you first have to win. Okay? So it does mean that you talk largely about economic issues. It does mean that you run on healthcare, but that you don't run on universal healthcare, on Medicare for all. It means that you run on getting people their access to prescriptions, okay? It means that you run on the sort of bread and butter, kitchen table kinds of issues that people like Jordon Chariton, people like me, quite frankly, don't focus on as much as we need to. I'm deciding if we want to watch more of his video. It's 10 minutes long. We've only watched 2 minutes. I don't really care about him, is the thing. I just wanted to yell at him because he's someone who I think deserves to be yelled at. And I think that it's important to recognize that there's a difference between someone like him who is going to lie to you, someone like him who doesn't actually care about the future of the country, who doesn't actually try to push progressive agenda, okay, and someone who's actually trying to push for something. People like him will try to pretend that they're further to the left than someone like me because I'll advocate for Joe Manchin, but it's not true. It's not true, okay? Being left-wing means you're trying to actually get left-wing things done, okay? And people like him have no interest in getting left-wing things accomplished, okay? If you are interested in exacting a left-wing agenda, that means that you are interested in winning elections. And he is not interested in winning elections. He is interested in looking cute while his candidate, okay, gets less than 30% of the vote. And that's a problem.